Alright, opinion time. You'll have to forgive me though, I am a little bit sick, so if I sound a little kerfuffled or something, then that's why. Why am I wearing headphones? I don't need these. I'm not listening to anything. So firstly, I'm sure plenty of people are wondering what this video is. If you haven't seen my video on the Angry Birds movie, you should definitely watch that first because this is a follow-up video to that, though I also get into general political stuff as well. And first, before I get into anything, I want to cover something that I should have covered a little bit better in the video, the main video. I posted the correction as a comment, and so I don't josh up my words, I'm gonna go ahead and just read that comment. Something to clear up, a few comments are pointing out that the left bird seems to be more of what is referred to as the regressive left, as opposed to the actual left. And true, now that I'm thinking more about it, I can definitely see that, and I apologize for that. Though also, the argument could be brought up that the regressive left is the vocal minority, and so in a lot of left-leaning countries, especially places like Germany and Sweden, the vocal minority that is the regressive left has a lot more say in politics than the actual left, which taints its reputation, much like how actual racists taint the reputation of the right. There is no vocal minority on the regressive right because the media and government often shuts them up for being hateful. But when the regressive left starts talking, universities, governments, and the media shake their heads in agreement, because if they don't, then they are racists, or hateful in some way, transphobic, Islamophobic, nationalist, etc., in the regressive left's eyes. So yes, Pink Bird being more part of the regressive left is not 100% reflective of the actual left, but at the same time she is reflective of that vocal minority that most of those on the left, or at least those in positions of power on the left, just shake their heads in agreement to. The actual left are just as much enablers of the regressive left as the actual right are being enablers for the regressive right. The left just gets more boosted because of media. But that is just my interpretation of it, and the beauty of humanity is that we are all different and thus have different interpretations. Plus, you can still be on the left but agree with plenty of right-wing points, and vice versa, only agreeing with points on your own side exclusively because they are on your side, which is why in the US we currently have a terribly polarized government right now. There are so few vocal people in the middle, outside of those echo chambers, that we can't get anything done. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit first. Now on to opinions. Firstly, the not-so-controversial opinion of the Angry Birds movie. Initially, of course, I thought the movie was going to be terrible, because it's a cash-in of a app game that isn't that popular anymore. It used to be really popular, but it's fallen. However, I did read an article a few weeks ago that said racists are getting behind the Angry Birds movie. And I thought, what? And then after I read the article, it brought up a few of the same points that I brought up. And then I watched the movie with that in mind, and it made the movie probably 100 times more hilarious. Because the political symbolism of any kind is hilarious. To me, at least. I like political humor. On either side of the political spectrum. It's just fun to make fun of people's views. So if you're the type of person that likes political commentary and making fun of that, I highly recommend watching the Angry Birds movie. I didn't even point out all of the symbolism. There's so much more. Another thing, a lot of people are wondering why I didn't just bother put my opinions in the initial video. And one, because the video is already half an hour long. I didn't want to make it a whole hour. And two, because I didn't want that video to polarize anyone. I wanted it to be as balanced as can be, with the hope that it would moderate some people. Like, quick example, I don't mean to single out anybody, but the whole reason I chose the wording in the thumbnail, not in the video title, but in the thumbnail I put the word racist, question mark, up on it, is because I know that will get a lot of people on the regressive left interested in the movie so that they can, further their own political agenda in what they assume will be a video within their echo chamber. But then after watching the video, they might moderate out a little bit. That was my goal, because, and now we're getting into my political views, I feel like the polarization of politics is the worst thing that can happen. There's nothing gets done. I mean, just look at the last few years. I feel like, just as a quick example, a lot of the people currently in Congress can't even say their own opinions without having to fear not getting reelected. By that I mean, like, quick example, let's say someone, a Republican in Congress, has the opinion that medical marijuana should be legal for everyone, which is something that I recently read like 23% of Republicans agree with. And if he says that, he can basically guarantee he won't be reelected, because he's not polarized enough. He's somewhere in the middle. That sucks. And now if I had to pick a side, I can't. Like, I've been thinking about it for a long time. I simply couldn't just pick one side. I guess I could refer to myself as a hardcore moderate, because I am of the opinion that both sides have valid points, and most likely the answers are in the middle. Not the answers to everything aren't in the middle. Sometimes one side is absolutely right and the other side is flat out wrong, but most of the time with most issues the answer is in the middle. Which of course is why the polarization of our society is the worst thing ever. I read some other article that said right now America is more polarized than it's ever been in history, not just in Congress, but even for people. Like, I forget the word they used, but politicism? It's basically racism. I almost said racism. It's basically racism, but rather than basing it on the color of someone's skin or where they're from, it's basing your hatred of someone based on their political views, which to some people might feel okay, because you're basing your judgment of people on their views, who they are as a person, which is exactly what Martin Luther King Jr. said. You know, I have a dream that one day people won't be judged by the color of their skin, but the conduct of their character. And people see their political views as the conduct of their character, so that's perfectly fine. However, the reason it's an issue is because people will assume, like, just a quick example, I have a roommate that's full-on Republican. Full-on. I didn't know that until somewhat recently, and when he told me, I of course immediately, because brains are imperfect, I fell into that trap. And I immediately just, boom, now I know, like, all of his political views. But you can't do that. People are not black and white. The symbolic reason, not the race reason. People are a gray area. Everyone is. If you're not a gray area and you just blindly assume things because of the political side you're on, then you are part of the problem. There was some Jimmy Kimmel skit a while ago, I don't watch the show, but I heard about it, where he or one of his reporters was walking around the streets of New York, or wherever, and they specifically found Hillary supporters. And they asked them, Hillary just announced this new policy that she has in mind of initiating when she's president, and then they explained it. And then they asked the people what they thought about it, and they were like, oh yeah, that's really good, that's a really good policy, I am fully supportive of that. And then Jimmy, or the reporter, revealed that it was actually a Trump policy, and they lied to him. And they've done the opposite also. They've gone to Trump supporters, said, oh hey, Trump just introduced this policy, what do you think of it? And then it was later revealed that it was actually a Hillary or a Bernie Sanders policy. And these people just blindly accepted it without thinking about it. Not because they might agree with it immediately, but because the person they supported, or the person that's on the same political side as them, was the one who made it. That's what they assumed. That's dangerous! Anyway, that's why I would consider myself a hardcore moderate, because not only am I a moderate, but I'm super into my moderacy, is a way of putting it, which sounds weird, and it is weird, but it's weird. And my goodness, if I don't edit this properly, this video is going to be all over the place. Another point, back on what I was talking about a little bit ago, about Left Bird being more part of the regressive left as opposed to the actual left, again with quotes around it. I feel like it is the fault of the regressive left that so many people are moving more and more to the right this particular election season. People can't talk about facts if the facts are deemed racist by the regressive left, quotes around it. Like, facts, you could argue that facts are indeed racist, but sometimes it's just foolish to do so. I mean, quick example, and I'm gonna get back to this into, like, pointing fingers at how silly the right side is too, so if you're part of the left, don't feel like I'm pointing fingers and wagging the finger at you. But, you could bring up the fact that an improportionate number of black males commit homicides compared to every other group of person, and if you use that fact to back up your actual racism, you're a problem. But if you also point at that fact and call that fact racist, then you are the other problem. Facts cannot be racist. The people reporting them can be, if they're using them to back up their racist claims. However, most people aren't. Because most people aren't all the way left or right. Most people are somewhere in the middle. It's just the people in the middle can't exactly talk about it because of the vocal minorities on both sides. Though usually the vocal minority on the left gets boosted even more because it's a more positive message on them. The whole, oh, that's racist, get rid of it, we're trying to create equality and stuff. But are they? Well, I mean, just recently read a report about I think it was Cambridge, University of Cambridge, made a diversity team to help boost, or it was a diversity meeting, and they were giving it to talk about how we can help society get more and more equal, and they flat out banned straight white men. Like, that's not equality, people. On the flip side, though, people on the far right are just as bad, if not worse. They're far right, I mean regressive right. See, it's hard to get all of these labels correct, and because of me spouting labels, people assume, and this is true with everyone assumes they know everything about some person because they have some label put on them, but that's never the case. Humans are not politically black and white. Everyone is in a gray area. I mean, it's a huge problem. You get labeled something, and then everyone that sees that label assumes they know everything about your political views, which is never ever the case in real life. I mean, just real quick, watch this. I'm all for gun control. So Loxton must be a Democrat then. Ooh. But only the militarized kinds. I feel like everyone else should have one. So he's a Republican? No, I'm human, and I have an opinion. And by the way, that isn't even my actual opinion on gun control. If you want to leave hate speech in the comments about it, that's not my actual opinion. Or is it? I'm going on about this so long and I haven't even gotten to the main issue on the movie. I guess it's necessary background information on me, though. This is going to irritate some people in the comments for sure. And actually, a lot of the people I showed the Angry Birds movie ahead of time thought that I shouldn't post it. They said this could potentially ruin your career because people on the internet don't like moderate things. People on the internet don't like anything that could be seen as slightly right-wing. But I still posted it anyway because I figured that's proving my point. Anyway, issue in the movie is the migrant crisis. Very basically, flat out, my opinion is that yes, we should be letting the refugees in temporarily. If for whatever reason they refuse to adapt to Western culture, they should be sent back. In my opinion, that's a very moderate stance on it. And we should be talking about it in a balanced way. We should be talking about the weapons that are getting smuggled in. We should be talking about the potential of ISIS members being smuggled in. We should be talking about this. But we can't, because it's racist to do so. I mean, real quick, curious as to if you think I am racist towards Muslims, which is a religion, not a people, or is it? I don't know all the details, which is why I don't form a solid opinion on them, because I don't know everything, and I admit that. There's certain sects of the Muslim Islamic faith that are perfectly fine, like the Sufi. So if someone's a Sufi Muslim, I say let them in. I mean, even put them on welfare if you want. But if someone's on the more extreme side, probably not. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Christian faith. There's so many different sects, groups, churches, individual belief systems, all within the Christendom faith. I mean, quick example, the Westboro Baptist Church. They are hardcore racists, transphobic, every buzzword you can think of, they are that. So should we be doing something about that? Maybe not the US specifically, but say a bunch of Westboro Baptist Church members all decide to move up to Canada. Should Canada do something? Yes, because they are allowed to do so. They are not Canadian citizens, so they can send them back to the US if they want. Something I legitimately wonder, though, is if Sharia law is so amazing according to some of the people that are coming in, then why are they leaving their area that has it? Why not move to some other country that isn't currently at war? Like, most of them. And that's another thing we should be allowed to discuss, is the few, we don't know exactly how many do it, but the few refugees that may be supportive of installing Sharia law into the countries they're moving to. we should be talking about that. But we can't, because it's racist. I feel like that was the main message of Angry Birds. Not that we should all be completely fearful of the pigs, but we should question them. Make sure we know what's going on. Make sure we background and criminal check them as they come in. Do most of them want Sharia law instated? Certainly not. There's article upon article upon article of even people inside of Sharia law countries trying to get unoppressed, make their countries more Western, etc. But there are some that are. I mean, quick example. White supremacists in Germany. You know, actual, real-life, today Nazis. If there was like a World War III, but mainly in Europe, and suddenly all of these white supremacist Nazis decided to come to your home state, or even your home city, would you feel good about that? If white supremacists suddenly were taking over your city? No. It's exactly the same fear, and it may be an irrational fear, but it's still the same fear that many people in Europe are having right now. Just replace white supremacists with jihadists. It's a legitimate fear that should be discussed openly. In fact, I'd say censoring them out and telling them to shut up because they're racist or whatever is only making the situation worse. Because if someone brought up that concern and instead of being shut down were educated, like, oh, you don't need to worry because here are the statistics. This many of the refugees don't want to support Sharia law. This many of the refugees are perfectly fine. They have no criminal background. They aren't smuggling in weapons. Most of them aren't. And, you know, if you educated them instead of berating them, everything would be fine. But instead of doing that, we're calling them racist and shoving them under the rug. That, I feel, is the real message of Angry Birds. Well, or it could be, since like all of the pigs were in fact the bad guys, that it is, Angry Birds is in fact an Islamophobic movie, but I doubt that. It would get way too complicated for a kids movie. I mean, it already is way too complicated for a kids movie, like, with the secret messaging, but like it would still get way too convoluted if some of the pigs were okay and some of them weren't. That would make it harder to get the message across. And back to the whole polarizing thing, again, there were plenty of comments in the video saying, like, oh, I'm on the far side of the left, but I agreed with Redbird more. You're totally wrong about politics. It's like, no. Certain points of views are more conservative or liberal, by definition. For example, let's very quickly just imagine some Republican, a very conservative Republican. By definition, he thinks certain things. But there are certain things he might not think, like he might be all for gay marriage. No matter how you spin it, being pro-gay marriage is a very liberal point of view. No matter how you spin it. Either that or libertarian. It could be libertarian also. But I guess that was a bad example. But you get what I'm saying? You can still have a majority one-side views on one side or the other of politics, but you can still occasionally reach over to the other side and have opinions that are generally part of that side. That doesn't make you not the side you claim to be on. It makes you human. By definition, wanting to save more money for yourself is a conservative standpoint. As such, by definition, business owners wanting to have a good, successful business have to be conservative. Even the ones you assume are super liberal, like, I don't know much about him, but Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook. You know, he's all for gay marriage and the Target bathroom issue. He's all for everything that is typically deemed as liberal, left-wing. However, in order to have as successful as a business as he has to be conservative with his money. Absolutely everyone is a balance. And polarizing is the worst. Anyway, I've been rambling on enough. I asked on Twitter, ask me any question about my Angry Birds movie or my views on politics. And I've gotten some responses since then, so I will just answer them now. Most commonly the questions are like, which side are you on, leftist or rightist? And I answered that already. I'm extreme moderate. There are also plenty of questions about which US candidate I support, and really my answer would be none of them. They're all way too polarized. It kinda sucks. This is almost always the situation. And people also need to realize the president actually doesn't do that much. Like, really, you should be significantly more concerned with who you're voting into Congress than who you are voting as president. Here's a good one. I guess to be more specific, what are your views on equality, progress, and the shifting social tides of the American culture? I'm all for equality, real equality, not the fake equality that those on the regressive left promote. We already have basic equal rights, and at this point, the reason the regressive left exists is because we're already, like, there are no laws in place stating people of color can't vote. There are no laws about that. At this point, it's entirely societal, which is why people on the regressive left are now nitpicking about the way people sit, nitpicking about what words you use. And not even like offensive words or not, but like, did you start your word with the letter Z or X when referring to someone? Ooh. Here's a good one. Do you think that the Angry Birds movie was wrong to put hidden messages in it? No. I actually love when children's movies put adult jokes in them. Both, like, actual adult jokes, like, you know, sex jokes and stuff, but also political jokes. Things that kids might not actually pick up on, but the adults watching can enjoy. I feel like it's too many cartoons and animated movies these days are bad. I didn't like the Despicable Me or the Minions. I didn't like any of the Ice Ages past number 1. Most of, like, all of the Shreks past number 2 were pretty meh also. It's fart jokes, and butt jokes, and poop jokes. That's not funny. Okay, I'll admit that, like, occasionally they're funny if they're done very, very right, but for the most part, absolutely not. And so, to keep adults more entertained, there should be some adult undertones to a children's movie. Because that makes it go from a children's movie to a family movie, and family movies do way better than children's movies. Also, if Angry Birds hadn't had those political undertones, it wouldn't have been that great of a movie. Like, I probably wouldn't have kept watching it. But because I was aware of the political undertones ahead of time, it was significantly more hilarious. What are your thoughts on socialism? It is definitely another form of government. That works for some places, but won't work for every place. That's another thing people need to realize. Certain types of governments won't work everywhere. So many people say, oh, just look at Sweden, it's a paradise! It's a socialist paradise! But, I mean, it is, for the most part. But would that work in Texas? I'd argue very much no, because if Texas suddenly adopted Sweden's government entirely, a lot of the businesses there would move out. And there are a lot of other questions on my Twitter feed that are just various forms of asking the same thing. So at this point, I guess I'm done. Those are my political views off the top of my head. If I was to write this out, it would be way more refined. I mean, people's political views change all the time. As more information comes in, as more facts get brought in by both sides, views change. I mean, just a few years ago, Hillary Clinton was against gay marriage. And now look at her. She's all for it. Possibly just because that's the popular thing to say. Another tweet I just got is, why is the regressive left obsessed with gamers? And I feel like that's also because of labeling. Gamers are labeled white, basement-dwelling men. Which obviously isn't the case, because gamers are literally like one of the most diverse groups of people. Because the word gamer just means people that play video games. Like, a lot. That's most people. You can't shove labels down people's throats. The real world doesn't work like that. It's starting to, which is terrifying. And it shouldn't. Anyway, I just want to end with this. As stated, a lot of the people that I showed this video to ahead of time told me I probably shouldn't post it. Even this video right now, I probably shouldn't post. Because people hate moderates. For some reason. Not realizing moderates are the ones that actually get stuff done. In my opinion. And I'm just some 20-something-year-old dude on the internet. So you can completely not care about my opinion if you want. And that's perfectly fine. Everyone has valid points to bring up. It's when you close your ears and don't listen to those valid points that problems arise. So stay awesome, keep learning, and keep using that noggin. The main video, I posted the correctionness as a comment, and so I don't josh up my words, I'm gonna go ahead and just read that comment. Something to clear up, a few comments are pointing out that the left bird seems to be more of what is referred to as the regressive left, as opposed to the actual left. And true, Now that I'm thinking more about it, I can definitely see that, and I apologize for that. Though also, the argument could be brought up that the regressive left is the vocal minority, and so in a lot of left-leaning countries, especially places like Germany and Sweden, the vocal minority that is the regressive left has a lot more say in politics than the actual left, which taints its reputation, much like how actual racists taint the reputation of the right. There is no vocal minority on the regressive right because the media and government often shuts them up for being hateful. But when the regressive left starts talking, universities, governments, and the media shake their heads in agreement, because if they don't, then they are racists, or hateful in some way, transphobic, Islamophobic, nationalists, etc., in the regressive left's eyes. So yes, Pink Bird being more part of the regressive left is not 100% reflective of the actual left, but at the same time she is reflective of that vocal minority that most of those on the left, or at least those in positions of power on the left, just shake their heads in agreement to. The actual left are just as much enablers of the regressive left as the actual right are being enablers for the regressive right. The left just gets more boosted because of media. But that is just my interpretation of it, and the beauty of humanity is that we are all different and thus have different interpretations. Plus, you can still be on the left but agree with plenty of right-wing points, and vice versa, only agreeing with points on your own side exclusively because they are on your side, which is why in the US we currently have a terribly polarized government right now. There are so few vocal people in the middle outside of those echo chambers. Alright, opinion time. You'll have to forgive me though, I am a little bit sick, so if I sound a little kerfuffled or something, then that's why. Why am I wearing headphones? I don't need these. I'm not listening to anything. So firstly, I'm sure plenty of people are wondering what this video is. If you haven't seen my video on the Angry Birds movie, you should definitely watch that first because this is a follow-up video to that, though I also get into general political stuff as well. And first, before I get into anything, I wanted to cover something that I should have covered a little bit better in the numbers, that we can't get anything done. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit first. Now onto opinions. Firstly, the not-so-controversial opinion of the Angry Birds movie. Initially, of course, I thought the movie was going to be terrible, because it's a cash-in of a app game that isn't that popular anymore. It used to be really popular, but it's fallen. However, I did read an article a few weeks ago that said racists are getting behind the Angry Birds movie. And I thought, what? And then after I read the article, it brought up a few of the same points that I brought up, and then I watched the movie with that in mind, and it made the movie